Were you able to come to any conclusions or opinions about the source and nature of the injuries that you see depicted on that exhibit?
Yes, those wounds were inflicted as the result of a dog attack.
Because you are agreeing today that those superficial abrasions did not have any punctures, right?
They don't appear to have any punctures.
But you, in the past, have testified very, very differently than that, haven't you?
No.
Will the jury bite? Our power panel weighs in on how effective defendant Karen Reed's dog bite expert is. Plus, what major moves does the defense need to make before the case is all said and done? And we're digging deeper into Diddy's dream team. Skilled defense attorney Brian Steele grilling alleged victim Mia. We'll hear the heated cross this morning. Also coming up this hour, the devil at his elbow. We're spotlighting a New York Times best-selling author and her new book on the Murdaugh murders. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. So are you ready for some coffee and some court? It's that time. Grab that cup of coffee or tea or if it's in the afternoon and you're across the pond, whatever you're having for lunch, it's time for my opening statement. Cult mom calls in sick. Well, sort of. She showed up to court on Monday in a wheelchair, telling the judge that she needed to go back to her cell and lie down because she was very sick. I'm sure the judge is sick too. Sick and tired of all her nonsense. You know, she tried to get the judge removed from her case. She accused him of being biased, and he made it very clear to her that even if she rests up in her cell for weeks, he'll still be the judge that presides over her attempted homicide case. The Honorable Justin Bareski ought to be canonized, in my opinion, for putting up with all of Cult Mom's antics and always treating her with dignity and respect. His honor has gone above and beyond to protect Cult Mom's right to a fair trial. And so he's allowing her until Wednesday to recover from her sudden illness. So, until then, my friends, we'll hope that Cult Mom is not contagious and that she doesn't put anybody else at risk of catching whatever she's got. And we're going to wish the judge well, too, as he gets ready for another trial with Counselor Cult Mom. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Can you describe how the defendant appeared during your contact with him while he was still in the car?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson was seated in the driver's seat, physically shaking as he was talking to Detective Blanchard and I, to which point, again, we then asked Mr. Anderson to shut off his vehicle. He does. We asked Mr. Anderson to exit the vehicle. He does.
So in Wisconsin, the state's case continues this morning in the deadly first date murder trial for defendant Maxwell Anderson. This guy's accused of murdering and dismembering 19-year-old Sade Robinson. In New York, we've got testimony continuing at 9 a.m. in Diddy's federal sex trafficking case. Court TV is there. We'll have updates for you throughout the day. And in Arizona, the case I was just talking about, Lori Vallow Daybell's attempted homicide case is going to pick back up tomorrow. Court is dark today because she's sick. Now, to our top story for you this morning. Let's talk about a key witness for the defense in defendant Karen Reed's retrial, where she's accused of causing the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. So this morning, we're going to see more cross-examination. You might recall their dog bite expert. We've seen her testify several times before. In fact, we saw her testify in the first trial. And she says that John O'Keefe's arm injuries came from a dog. Her name is Dr. Marie Russell. And she was cross-examined yesterday. She's going to be cross-examined some more this morning. The judge had the jury break for the day, so there's a lot more to get to. But let's listen to a little sampling of what was asked thus far.
Were you able to come to any conclusions or opinions about the source and nature of the injuries that you see depicted on that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is your opinion and conclusion concerning those injuries?
Those wounds were inflicted as the result of a dog attack.
Would you agree that the superficial abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm had no punctures?
I agree.
Because you are agreeing today that those superficial abrasions did not have any punctures, right?
They don't appear to have any punctures.
But you, in the past, have testified very, very differently than that, haven't you?
No.
So how effective do you think Karen Reed's dog bite expert is? And what do you think the jury is thinking of her so far? Let's bring in our guests. I'm so happy to have on the program this morning, podcaster and the host of the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, Roberta Glass, and attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice. Good morning to you both. Roberta, let me start with you. What do you think the jury might be thinking of Dr. Russell's testimony so far?
Well, I think any rational jury that's following the evidence in this case is going to not think much of Dr. Russell, the attention-seeking dog bite, self-appointed dog bite expert. She read about the case in the paper and got herself, on as an expert in the trial, and her evidence has been spotty, to say the least.
Roberta, appreciate it. I agree. Randolph, let me ask you something else. From a legal standpoint, we know that the first time ever Dr. Marie Russell was qualified as a dog bite expert in a court of law was last year in Dedham, Massachusetts, when the defense called her, and there wasn't a lot of pushback from the prosecution. Harkening back to your time as a prosecutor, and let's say you're on this team now, would you feel some regret that there wasn't more pushback the time around and the ability to go to the court and say, this woman has never, ever been qualified in state or federal court to give an expert opinion on such a matter? Why now, Judge? Do you think there's any regret that they're in this position now that the judge kind of had to let her in round two?
I'm sure there's a little bit of regret, but the facts are the facts. She's in there now as a dog bite expert. She gets to give her opinion as to why or how she thinks that these injuries were sustained on John O'Keefe's arm. And the state, just has to work with it. And I think they've done a good job, obviously, in their cross. I didn't feel like her testimony was impactful as the defense wanted it to be.
I hear you, Randolph. Yeah, let's take a listen to one of the clips from the defense direct. It was a long direct, and you're right, there wasn't a lot of sting or a lot of punch with it. Let's take a look at some of what was asked.
I believe that this hole was made by a canine tooth, and with the tooth going into the shirt, reaching the skin, and then coming out of the shirt, pulling out some fabric with it.
Roberta, you followed the facts very closely all throughout the progression of the first trial, the second trial. No canine DNA, right, on the clothing?
No canine DNA on the clothing. There's no puncture wounds. The depth of the wounds are not reminiscent of a dog. Coming after the testimony of Kelly Dever, who said that the defense threatened them with perjury if she didn't lie on the stand, then comes this witness. I think the defense has lost all credibility. I think it's, they look like a joke with this witness, frankly.
Roberta, something I was thinking about yesterday with them calling her, last year, they had the advantage of the prosecution kind of falling for what they did, falling for, playing defense and all that, and telling largely their story for them, the way Adam Lally decided to run the trial. This year, they don't have that. They've got a precise prosecutor on the other side. I'm wondering, Roberta, as a storyteller yourself, do you think the jurors are getting the story here, the defense story, where they're claiming that he was in the house and his friends suddenly tried to murder him and beat him up and sick the dog on him and decided to put him outside, you know, not quite dead, but almost dead, and hope that Karen Reed would come by and somehow they could make it look like a car accident?
I wondered the same thing, Julie. You know, you just wonder, you know, they've heard all about this, the taillight pieces found all over the crime scene, microscopic pieces of taillight embedded in John O'Keefe's shirt. And then all of a sudden the defense is bringing out this dog bite expert. And I think they must be wondering what this has to do with anything. It looks quite bizarre, frankly.
Right. I'm just wondering if the jury's like, why are we talking about a dog? You know, I'm just wondering if I was sitting in the jury box, I'd be like, so what dog are we, you know, like, where'd the dog come from? Was there a dog in the car? I'm just kind of confused. Randolph, I want to show you a clip from the cross. You said you liked what Hank Brennan was doing so far. Let's take a look at some of what he did yesterday.
Dr. Russell, from your perspective, as far as you know, you were the only person in the entire United States of America who was qualified to look at a photograph and make a determination whether the wound was derived from a dog bite.
No. I am one of I'm the only physician that I know of that can do that. There may be, a few others out there. There may be, but I don't know of any other physicians that can do that.
Randolph, tell me, if you're Hank Brennan, what would you really be zeroing in on today with her?
Well, I think you're just trying to attack any type of, for example, the puncture wounds. You know, she talks about the teeth going through the sweatshirt and into the skin. Why is there no puncture wounds? So you maybe lean into that a little bit more. And to go back to your point that you made earlier on, is there anybody else out there that can do this? And she seems to be waffling about, you know, exactly, can this really be an expert area? Can somebody be an expert in determining if is dog bite injuries or not?
Right, Randolph, right. Yeah, and isn't it tricky with someone like Dr. Marie Russell, because although she may not be qualified to give this expert opinion, but she was in the first trial for the first time ever, now she's back. She's a really nice lady, right? So that's a tricky cross, isn't it? When you have somebody who you want to show is lacking in the ability to deliver the opinion, but you don't want to slam her because she is very polite and seems kind of likable.
Yeah, I mean, she is acting like an expert should act. You're up there being objective. You're being somebody who's not confrontational with the person asking you questions. And so really it's going to come down to, does the jury think that she's an expert? The court may have said she's an expert, but at the end of the day, what matters is, does the jury buy what she's selling? Does the jury say, we think she's an expert, we think that what she's telling us is true, and therefore we can throw out all this broken glass theory that the state has been presenting and believe that this was a dog that caused these injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great point, Randolph. Roberta, let me ask you about that. So when we think about the story that's being told, and if you're a juror, you've heard the story of this awful collision, of this defendant drunk and enraged, gunning it in reverse, hitting John O'Keefe with her car, glass from her taillight being embedded in his clothing, his DNA on the back of the SUV, one of his hairs on the back of the SUV. You're hearing all that. With this witness, it seems to me that the jury's almost being asked to just kind of put the blinders on, ignore all of that, and imagine that a dog did this. Roberta, your thoughts?
Well, no one has been a better storyteller in this trial than Karen Reed herself, who gave so many pre-trial interviews that have been used to narrate the trial. So, you know, as soon as the defense takes one step forward, there's Karen Reed on the court TV screen saying, wondering whether she clipped him with her 6,000-pound SUV or whether she just hit him in the knee, or, you know, the drinks were so weak. I mean, and she was really way too drunk to drive. I mean, She has been the narrator of her own trial, and it has been absolutely brilliant and diabolical of Hank Brennan to have Karen Reed narrate her own murder trial.
Oh, yeah. Brennan is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He's a force to be reckoned with. I think he's going to be a household name after this is all said and done, and he really deserves it. Excellent work. We'll leave it there for now. We'll see. Maybe they'll call Chloe to the stand. If Chloe barks, is it hearsay? The answer is no. Dog barking is not hearsay. Hearsay comes from a human. We'll leave it there. Roberta Glass, thanks for coming on. Come back again soon, please. Randolph Rice, you're coming with us. We're so grateful for your time this morning. Still ahead here on Opening Statements. We're not done analyzing the case in Dedham, Massachusetts. So what moves does the defense team need to make? Plus,
I was still deeply ashamed and wanted to die with this. I never wanted to tell anybody ever.
You were so deeply ashamed and, God forbid, wanted to die. Why didn't you? Why did you, with all of these messages that the jurors have seen, still communicate with Mr. Combs?
so how well is the Diddy defense doing? We're taking a look at alleged victim Mia and her cross-examination that has just been brutal.
Karen Reed is in the midst of the retrial of the century.
She is factually innocent. She's guilty.
There's something wrong in this county.
Come at me.
John O'Keefe was killed by that defendant, Karen Reed.
She's the victim of a corrupted investigation that was never about the truth.
Another big day here at the Dedham Courthouse.
Fight on. Nothing's breaking me, Matt.
You'll see it all unfold right here on Court TV.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
How did you react when that happened?
I just froze. I didn't react.
How did you feel?
Terrified and confused and ashamed and scared.
Did you want to have sex with Mr. Combs?
No.
How long was this assault?
It was very quick, but felt like forever.
Now to what's trending in true crime. That was alleged victim and former employee of Diddy's, Mia. She's gone by a pseudonym Mia, describing her allegations of sexual assault against Diddy. Her cross-examination is really what has us talking this morning as Diddy's defense team pushed back hard on those claims Monday. The questioning done by attorney Brian Steele, who many of you will probably remember for redefining the meaning of thug during the YSL RICO case.
You would be truly humble under God. That's what thug means.
Remember that? Now, back to Monday. Steele's latest move in Diddy's case was pressing his former assistant, Mia, on the timing of her rape allegations against the music mogul and her moral obligation as well to voice those concerns.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Who threatened to tell Ms. Ventura about Mr. Combs supposedly sexually assaulting you?
Puff.
So your testimony before this jury is that Mr. Combs told you, threatened you as your word, that, hey, I have a mind to tell Ms. Ventura that I sexually assault you?
Objection.
It's overruled.
That was not his wording. He threatened to tell Cassie everything, quote unquote.
By 2020, August 29th, you knew, according to you, what you said earlier on direct examination, that you have a moral obligation to speak up. Do you remember saying that to the jury?
Objection.
That's overruled.
I now have a moral obligation. Yes.
Why didn't this moral obligation happen in 2017?
You said, why did it?
Didn't it?
Why didn't it?
Yes. Why didn't you have the moral obligation to say, this is my experience with Mr. Combs?
Because I was terrified and I was brainwashed.
So testimony is going to resume this morning. Another accuser is set to take the stand as early as tomorrow as well. So this morning, the question we're asking our power panel, how are Diddy's dream team attorneys doing with his defense? I'm so happy to have with me on the program former prosecutor Melba Pearson and entertainment commentator, actress, and dancer Holland Reed. Good morning to you both. All right, so how's the dream team doing in your opinion, ladies? Melba, would you start us off, please?
Well, good morning. And it's a mixed bag. I think they're doing a good job from the standpoint of bringing up inconsistencies and, kind of pointing to gaps in some things that people may not find logical, right? So, and you're in such a toxic work environment, why are you staying? Aren't there other jobs out there? If your boss is allegedly sexually assaulting you, why are you staying? That sort of thing. But at the same token, it's all about tone and timing. And from the way that the transcript reads and from the reports that we've gotten inside of the courtroom, it sounds like Brian Steele was giving her a heck of a time. And that could play very badly, especially the dynamic of a male really attacking a female survivor of sexual assault. And of course, yes, he's a defense attorney, he has to do the cross-examination, but I think it would have played better if he had used a female member of his team to ask the same questions. Right now, it kind of looks like he's bullying her, so he risks a huge backlash from the jury with that.
Oh, that's an excellent point, Melba. Love that. Thank you for that. Holland, your thoughts on the Diddy dream team, so to speak?
Oh, my thoughts. First of all, thank you for having me, Julie. And we have to say happy birthday, belated birthday. Yesterday was your birthday. I have to say that. Happy birthday.
Thank you, sweet friend.
So, you're
another year older, none the wiser.
Yes,
thank you.
The thoughts on the dream team are, I'm gonna agree. He's doing his job. He's doing his job for Diddy. He's relentless and he's being very creative. But at the same time, it does come off as harassment and bullying. You are taking someone's trauma and trying to make it a part of their character, which is not true. We know that victims in these situations, they do come out later down the timeline. There isn't a linear way to explain what you've been through with someone, especially of this caliber, especially of this dynamic. So I feel like there was a little bit of bullying going on, although the judge definitely was like, no, this is appropriate. But I think it definitely played to the jurors that, hey, she might not be consistent. Unfortunately, that's one side of it. I think also on the other flip side of it, she was able to convey, hey, this started from day one. I did have trauma. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I was a victim. So yes, Brian Steele, very creative. We saw that with Young Thug. And at the same time, she's still able to get her point across and saying, this is not a normal situation. And it was absolutely intense and traumatizing.
Yes, I love the points you made, Holland. And it was making me think these prosecutors really have to be clear that both things can be true here. It can be true that she was assaulted and abused and all of the horrible things that she said happened or did in fact happen. And at the same time that she lied about it publicly for whatever reason, shame, embarrassment, fear, both things can be true here. And so I think it's like the government, it's on them, to embrace this, explain it, make it clear. I've got another clip I would love to play for you both. This is more of Brian Steele's cross of me, and this is where he's kind of honing in on the timing of the allegations. Take a listen.
Why in 2018 didn't you have the moral obligation to come forward and make these allegations against Mr. Combs that he had sexually abused you?
Objection.
It's overruled.
The same reason.
When did the moral obligation come to your mind that you need to say this information that you are putting forth, that Mr. Combs violated you in a sexual manner and other ways?
When I started witnessing him being held accountable for his actions and being told what happened to me was wrong.
That answer, when she was told. Melba, what does that make you think as a former prosecutor, somebody who's been such a great advocate for victims for so many years? Do you believe Mia was in fact victimized?
110% yes. And again, I've seen thousands of victims throughout my career and continue to interact with victims. Sometimes there's times where victims aren't always straightforward with you for a number of reasons. But this is not one of those instances where I think Mia is getting on the stand and lying. I think that the other testimony from various former employees all say the same thing. They were all traumatized. They were all threatened with violence. Violence was a constant part of their day, whether it was, let's, get a gun and go kill kill Kid Cudi, or whether it's I'm going to hold you at gunpoint until Cassie you get over here, or, you know, every single employee had some horrible story about trauma they endured while working for Diddy, and they all said the same thing. Yeah, it was the greatest time of my life. I was so happy to be able to work with him. I just kind of put the bad things out of my mind because that's the only way I could cope. So her story is not out of sync with what other former employees are saying. It just took it to another level with the sexual assault, which also is consistent with what Cassie's saying. So there's so many overlaps. It's not like she's out here saying this and everybody else is saying, yeah, it was a normal life, or, you know, a couple blips here and there. They all had similar traumatic stories, just with different aspects to it. So I think she's telling the truth, and I hope the jury sees that as well.
Right, right, Melba. And thank you for bringing it back to what the government has to prove. Mia is helping corroborate Cassie's testimony pertaining to the sex trafficking. She's also substantiating one of the predicate crimes of forced labor that's under the racketeering conspiracy allegation. So Mia is doing an awful lot, although she's an imperfect witness, as we know. Melba, thank you. Holland, I would love to end the segment by asking you to speak to the industry, please, and the culture of silence that exists. You've been someone who's worked in it for many years. You're so talented. You've done so many things. You've crossed paths with Diddy, with Suge Knight, even in an elevator one time. I remember you telling us that story. You know, you've been around these people. Help us kind of understand what it may have been like for Mia trying to make it in show business.
If I can just share a really quick personal story to just maybe encapsulate the microcosm of this. It's in a very smaller situation. I had an abuser that asked me, lost their mind one day, threw a plate of a piece of steak because there was no leftover food, and threw a piece of steak at my head literally in a kitchen on Valentine's Day, and then got mad at me because I did not post me celebrating them on Valentine's Day. I went and got a bunch of paper bags, put them on a table, did a whole Instagram post to feed the beast. I spoke about this last night with your colleagues. People do not realize sometimes there are situations where you're simply just trying to shut up the devil, and that's what I have done. When you're in the industry and there are people that have power over you in ways that some people can never imagine, and not in the way that you think, not in a way that's like, oh, this person's controlling you, whatever. It's just, I'm trying to keep myself safe. I'm trying to not make it worse. I don't want a plate of a piece of steak thrown at my head because I am not behaving or cooperating in the way that they want. I escaped that situation in ways where the police were at the door, and I did not tell the police that person was abusing me. I did not tell the police that person had done anything wrong because I just wanted to go. All of my belongings scattered down the stairs, her friends witnessing this. So let's be very clear. Before you speak out and speak up about abusive situations, it comes in all forms, okay? So when I'm speaking about the industry, all the industries, it's power dynamics. It's not just the music industry. It is power dynamics where you somehow owe someone something, or you feel like you owe someone something. And it comes at a cost, at a price. And unfortunately, some people can't get out in time. Some people are more strong-willed. Some people do not know how to handle it and have never been through it, and this is their first experience. And you don't know how to walk away. So with the entertainment industry, sports industry, politicians, we are witnessing in real time the reckoning of this isn't a witch hunt.
Yes,
this is a truth harvesting at this point. And I just want to leave that right there. So I just wanted to share that because I think a lot of people comment on this and think that this is some big scale thing. Cosby, Weinstein, Epstein.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And the list goes on and on. You're right.
I just wanted to share that.
You're right. Well, and I appreciate that. And we're so sorry that happened to you, Holland. And good for you. We applaud your bravery, your courage in getting out and keeping yourself safe. And the moral of that story really is, sometimes you have to just keep yourself safe, and that may have been what Mia was trying to do. Thank you for sharing something so personal. We love you, Holland. We'll see you soon. Take good care. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit a break. Melba's coming along with us. Please do the same at home, my friends. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
Indictment for murder, guilty. Indictment for murder, guilty.
Justice was done. It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered. We can't bring them back, but we can bring them justice.
And he may be taken away.
We have a very special guest joining us next, someone who closely followed the Murdaugh murders case and wrote a best-selling book on the South Carolina family. Plus, is defendant Karen Reed's team doing enough to sway the jury? We'll talk about the moves they may need to make.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Oh, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills.
In our spotlight this morning, the Alec Murdaugh family murders case through the eyes of a veteran reporter who's become an authority on the case. Once prominent South Carolina lawyer Alec Murdaugh convicted of murdering his wife Maggie and his youngest son Paul in 2021. He told the jury, though, he didn't do it.
I don't know what I said to law enforcement, Mr. Waters, but I can tell you this. When I pulled up and I saw Mags and Paul, I jumped out of that car. I know that I went back to my car and I called 911 as quickly as I could.
Murdaugh is currently in prison hoping to get a new trial based on allegations that Clerk of Court Becky Hill wrongly shared information with the jury and the media during his homicide case. The new book, The Devil at His Elbow, Alec Murdaugh and the Fall of a Southern Dynasty, is out now on paperback, and it's already on the New York Times bestseller list. And joining me now, the book's author, Wall Street Journal reporter Valerie Borline. Valerie, congratulations on the success of your book, and thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So think back to the time when you were in the courtroom for us, please. During the trial, it's my understanding that you thought at one point he might get away with this. Tell us why, please.
You know, it's so eerie, really, to watch that footage of Maggie and Paul. You know, today's June 3rd, 2025. 4 years ago today, they were living the last days of their lives, and so it's really it's strange to remember that of all the circus that we've experienced here, at the core of it, it's a story of how a man could kill his wife and son. But, you know, I really didn't know. It was my sense, and I think a lot of the media expected a hung jury, because you have to remember, we were in a tiny county, Colleton County, where the Murdaugh family had been, you know, held sway over the prosecutor's office for 100 years. And this was, you know, 20,000 people in that county, almost all of whom knew of the Murdaughs or even knew Alec personally. So it was just hard to imagine that in a place where those connections were so deep, there wouldn't be one of 12 jurors who might see some reasonable doubt here. But in the end, you know, it was a guilty verdict. And I think, you know, I may have been surprised by that. Others may have, but you know, it was resounding guilty within less than 2 hours, right?
Right, Valerie. In your book, I understand that you've got some interviews with the lead detectives, sharing things with you that they haven't shared before about how they built the case. Would you share a little bit with us now, perhaps something new that you learned after talking with them after the fact?
Well, you know, I had a little bit of the benefit of time. I spent more than 2 years on this book, and I talked to more than 200 people, many of whom had not spoken to the media before or to other authors. And I also spent a total of 4.5, roughly, months on the ground in South Carolina. So I did have the opportunity to just really sit down with people without a notebook at first and get to know them a little bit. One of those people was David Owen, the lead detective on the case. And he told me just the personal toll that it took on his life, knowing he had a strong feeling from within 24 hours of meeting and laying eyes on Alec Murdaugh that he knew that more than he was saying. But he couldn't prove it for, essentially 9-10 months, which was a very long time. And he felt like it could end up, ruining him financially if he failed. There was a lot at risk for him personally there. And I think, Blanca Simpson was another key voice, and she shared some evidence or some observations she made there at Moselle about a towel she spotted in his Suburban that night, right? A wet towel kind of wadded up in the console that to her, sealed the deal. That's how she knew that he had showered off in her mind and grabbed that towel, which was in the laundry room. So I wrote this book with two people in mind, people that really knew of the case but hadn't followed it at all and wanted sort of the beginning, middle, and end, but also kind of the people that watched y'all every day and every minute of footage that you showed. I wanted to surprise them with some new kernel or bit of information they might not have known before.
Right. That's fantastic, Valerie. Tell me, based on everything that you've learned through your observations in the courtroom, watching the evidence being presented, the interviews that you've done so extensively in order to write this book, what's your opinion on what happened the night of the murders?
Well, you played that footage of Alec testifying, and I really think there were times when he was on the stand that he told the truth. There were some things he said that the evidence shows were true. I think that night, two things happened. He said that whoever did this had it in their mind a long time. He told his sister-in-law, Marion Proctor, that. I think that's true. I think he had in the back of his mind, if he ever had to break glass, and as we know, the walls were closing in on him that afternoon with his financial crimes. He was being found out at the law firm. He was also on the hook in the tragic death of Mallory Beach, that case, to turn over his financials. So I think he had in his mind, if he ever needed to change the subject in a very dramatic way to take attention off himself, that was the emergency plan. But I also think he snapped. So I think he had planned it in one hand and then he snapped in the other. And Creighton Waters, the lead prosecutor, we talked about this at some length for the book, but also he mentioned it in the trial. They had argued frequently over Alec's drug use, his opioid pills, which you heard Judge Newman refer to. And Alec that night was asked 8 ways from Sunday, what did you and Maggie talk about in the world's shortest, most quiet dinner that you can't remember one thing you talked about on the most important thing in your life? And I think another thing that I reveal in the book is that Blanca Simpson, the housekeeper, found evidence of an empty pill baggie in Maggie's bathroom that evening when Alec was supposedly off drugs. He had been withdrawing the day before. He had promised her again he was going to be off drugs. I think the evidence supports that he planned it, but he also snapped when there was some sort of confrontation. And the only person who knows what that was, who's living, is Alec Murdaugh.
Is him. Oh, I know. I don't know if we'll ever hear the truth from him entirely. Valerie Borline, thank you so much for the conversation this morning and for coming on. Looking forward to reading your book. Take good care.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Certainly. When we come back, we're taking you to Massachusetts. Live look right now at the ceiling fan. We're talking about how the defense case is doing so far.
Social media star loses his wife and then loses control. I couldn't believe that she could do that to me.
From content creator to cold-blooded killer, the TikTok star murder trial, starting Wednesday at 2 on Court TV, Legendary Trials.
Friday night, the WNBA is on Ion. The Dream take on the Sun.
Mabry with the finish.
Then, the Wings host the Sparks.
She got another one.
Coverage begins Friday night at 7. Find Ion wherever you watch. Ion, it's on.
They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
That was Karen Reed's defense team after the first trial, making what sounded like a victory speech after the mistrial was declared. Well, so now we're going into day 3 of the defense case, and they don't seem nearly as confident. The prosecution is tipping the scales now in Karen Reed's retrial, totally revamping its strategy, focusing on the science, the data, the evidence, tuning out all the unnecessary noise, taking out unnecessary witnesses. Like disgraced former trooper Michael Proctor, for example. They don't need him. They're not calling him. So that has some people wondering, is the defense losing this chess match? Let's take a look at their witnesses up to this point.
Do you want to be here today now?
I am put on the stand in a murder trial. I don't know why I'm here. I have no connection to this case.
You have no idea why you're here?
You've never talked to me. Nobody on the fence seems to talk to me since prior to the first trial. So I don't have any idea why I'm here.
Do any of the data indicate that there was a collision on January 29th, 2022 at any time? What did you find in terms of any data regarding a collision?
Neither of the events that occurred on that date were triggered by a collision.
You're not aware that he was fired for conduct unbecoming because of these text messages?
My understanding was it was due to the text messages. I don't know the other details of the situation.
Do you know he was not fired for any accusations of planting or tampering with evidence?
I do not know that.
Do you know that he was not fired for doing anything to compromise the integrity of the evidence in this investigation?
I do not know that.
Other than this case, there was never, ever a time in your career where you were presented with a photo and asked to give an opinion whether the mechanism of injury was a dog bite, other than this case.
That's correct. All right, so what big moves does the defense team need to make? I've got 2 great attorneys I'm going to bring in now, Randolph Rice and Melba Pearson. Let's talk about this. Okay, Randolph, so what do you think they need to do?
Well, they need to do a lot. They've got to obviously refute cell phone data. They've got to refute red plastic in the front yard. They've got to refute the, that last witness for the state, the accident reconstructionist. He was powerful. That's why they called him at the end. So they've got to refute all of this evidence that the Commonwealth put in that was very persuasive. And, look, we're, 4 witnesses into it. They've got a lot more. They're telling us a couple weeks now. So they have time. It's just, can they overcome all that evidence that the Commonwealth put in?
Mm-hmm. Right, Randolph, yeah. Melba, what do you say? What more should they do at this point?
Listen, they can only do the best they can with what they have. And the reality is, a retrial is so much stronger for the prosecution, and we're seeing that in real time. Usually between trials, and again, both Randolph and I have been through it, when you have a mistrial and you go to do the retrial, you look at the entire transcript, you look at everything that went wrong, you start tightening up, leaving out the witnesses that may not have been as beneficial for you, because again, you think putting them on the stand, okay, this person will give XYZ information, XYZ evidence, and it may not have come out the way that you had anticipated. So for trial 2, you either know to change your questions or not put that person on altogether. So with the prosecution being so laser focused on the scientific aspects, it doesn't seem like the defense is ready for that dance. They were ready to keep staying in the, conspiracy theory mindset and the frame up mindset and all of that, and they didn't seem as ready to combat the actual scientific evidence that was presented by the prosecution. So I don't know much more that they can do. I mean, they're going to keep trying to throw whatever they can against the wall and see what sticks, but I don't think they're in a good position at this juncture.
Mm-hmm. Right, Melba. What about putting her up on the stand? And when I say that, it's an expression we use in the legal community. It's the defendant's decision always. It lies solely with them whether they'll testify. Randolph, what do you think? Could that be a last-minute Hail Mary possibility?
Julie, every time you've asked me that question since we've been talking about this trial, I've been saying, no, she's not going to testify. But you know what? Now that you say it this morning, it may make sense that the defense believes that they just don't have it at the end. They may say, you know what, Karen, you need to get up there and you need to put on the show of your lifetime and explain to this jury that you didn't do what they're alleging that you did. And that might be their only hope at this point in time if they can't get over those humps that Melba was talking about.
Right, Randolph. Yeah, I know we're just about out of time. I've said it before. I think she's calling the shots. I think the tail was wagging the dog with this team. I think she's the one telling them what to do. She was giving one of them notes yesterday to take up there for one of the series of questions. We've got to leave it there for now. Melba Pearson, Randolph Rice, you both are tremendous. Thank you for all of the great legal commentary this morning. We'll see you soon.